The trouble began on a sunny Tuesday morning when David heard a loud knock on his front door. He had just returned from his morning walk with Max, his loyal golden retriever. Max wasn't just a pet, he was David's trained service animal, a companion who had been by his side through the hardest years of his life. But standing on the porch was Karen, the notorious HOA president, clipboard in hand and a smug expression that instantly made David's stomach tighten. "Your dog is in violation of HOA rules," she declared, not even offering a polite greeting. "We don't allow animals of his size in this community. You'll need to rehome him immediately, or face daily fines." David's chest tightened. Not out of fear but out of disbelief. Max wasn't just some pet that could be given away, he was his lifeline. The idea of losing him was unimaginable. David calmly explained, "Max isn't just a dog. He's my service animal, fully protected under federal law. You can't take him away." But Karen only smirked, brushing off his words. "We'll see about that. Rules are rules. You'll be hearing from us." As she walked away, David felt a storm brewing. This wasn't just about HOA rules anymore, this was about dignity, rights, and the unbreakable bond between a man and his dog. Deep down, he knew this was only the beginning of a battle that would test every ounce of his patience and strength. A few days later, David found an official-looking letter in his mailbox. It was from the HOA, signed by Karen herself, stating that he had 7 days to remove Max from the property. If he failed, he would face heavy fines and possible legal action. The letter was cold, written with the kind of precision meant to intimidate. David sat at his kitchen table, the letter trembling in his hands. Max lay quietly at his feet, sensing his owner's unease. To David, this was more than just paperwork, it was a direct attack on the only companion who had carried him through sleepless nights, anxiety attacks, and moments when life felt unbearable. He could almost hear Karen's voice between the lines of that letter, dripping with arrogance and control. Most neighbors had learned to stay out of her way, but David couldn't. He knew his rights, and more importantly, he knew that Max wasn't going anywhere. Instead of panicking, David began to prepare. He gathered Max's certification documents, his medical records, and federal service animal protections. This wasn't going to be a shouting match with Karen on the sidewalk. Nope, this was going to be a fight grounded in law, truth, and the bond no HOA rule could ever erase. But as David placed the papers neatly into a folder, one thought kept haunting him: why was Karen so determined to take Max away? Was this really about violations, or was there something deeper driving her crusade? When the next HOA meeting rolled around, David walked into the crowded clubhouse with Max by his side. Heads turned instantly. Some neighbors smiled warmly at Max, while others shifted uncomfortably, clearly aware of the brewing conflict. Karen sat at the front of the room, gavel in hand, her posture stiff and commanding. "As I've already informed Mr. Walker," Karen began, "his dog violates HOA pet restrictions. Our rules are clear, and exceptions cannot be made for one homeowner. If we allow this, what stops others from breaking the rules?" David stood slowly, his folder of documents tucked firmly under his arm. His voice was calm but steady. "This isn't about bending rules. This is about federal law. Max is a service animal, and under the Americans with Disabilities Act, you cannot deny me the right to have him in my home. These rules don't override federal protections." The room fell into a tense silence. A few neighbors whispered, some nodding in quiet agreement. Karen, however, didn't flinch. She banged the gavel and snapped, "This meeting isn't a courtroom. Our rules are clear." David's jaw tightened, but he didn't waver. He pulled out the documents and laid them on the table for everyone to see. "Then perhaps it's time you remember that the law is greater than any HOA handbook." The shift in the room was immediate. People leaned forward, curious, realizing this wasn't just another petty dispute. This was about rights, and Karen might have just picked a fight she couldn't win. The tension carried into the days that followed. Karen tried to rally neighbors against David, spreading rumors that Max was dangerous, disruptive, and aggressive. But those who had seen the gentle retriever knew better. Max wasn't aggressive, he was calm, loyal, and often greeted children at the bus stop with a wagging tail. One evening, as David was watering his garden, his neighbor Linda walked over. She had lived in the community for years, and though she usually kept to herself, she looked troubled. "David," she said softly, "I think you should note Karen had a dog once. A big one. It barked a lot, and when it bit someone years ago, the HOA made her get rid of it. She's hated large dogs ever since. This isn't about rules. It's personal." The revelation struck David like a thunderbolt. Karen wasn't enforcing rules, she was projecting her own bitterness onto him and Max. That changed everything. It wasn't just a misunderstanding, it was Karen's vendetta. With this new understanding, David felt his resolve strengthen. Karen could spin whatever story she wanted, but the truth was on his side, and now, so was the law. And as whispers of Karen's past began to circulate, cracks in her iron grip over the HOA started to show. One Saturday morning, the conflict escalated. David heard a knock on his door, and this time, it wasn't Karen. Two police officers stood outside, stern expressions on their faces. "We've received a report about a dangerous animal on the property," one officer explained. David's heart sank, but he quickly invited them inside. Max greeted them with calm eyes and a gentle wag of his tail. Within moments, the tension melted. One officer even bent down to scratch Max's head, smiling at the dog's friendly demeanor. "This isn't a dangerous animal," the officer said, shaking his head. "Whoever called this in clearly doesn't understand what a service animal is." David handed them Max's documents, neatly prepared in his folder. The officers nodded approvingly, reassured that everything was legitimate. As they left, one officer added quietly, "Looks like someone's trying to cause you trouble. Don't worry, we see right through it." For David, it was a small but powerful victory. Karen's tactics were growing desperate, and the more she pushed, the clearer it became to everyone around her that this wasn't about the community's safety. It was about control, and she was losing it. The HOA board, once silent under Karen's leadership, began to fracture. Emails leaked, revealing that several members disagreed with her obsession over Max. At the next meeting, the tension exploded. One board member finally spoke up, "Karen, this has gone too far. You've dragged this community into unnecessary conflict, ignored federal law, and harassed one of our neighbors. This isn't leadership, it's bullying." The room erupted in murmurs, many neighbors nodding in agreement. David sat quietly, Max at his feet, as Karen's face flushed red. She tried to argue, but her words fell flat. The board voted to dismiss all violations against David and Max, officially recognizing his rights and apologizing for the ordeal. For the first time in weeks, David felt a wave of relief wash over him. Justice wasn't just an idea anymore, it was real, and it was his. Max lay beside him, calm as ever, as if he knew they had just won something far bigger than a neighborhood dispute, but Karen wasn't finished yet. A week later, a letter arrived at David's home, not from the HOA, but from the county office. Enclosed was a formal notice. Karen herself had been fined for misuse of HOA authority and false reports to the police. It turned out that David's documentation, combined with the police visit, had sparked a county-level review of her behavior. The irony was undeniable. The same woman who had tried to strip David of his dog was now stripped of her own power. She was removed as HOA president, barred from holding office in the community again. David stood on his porch with Max by his side, the letter in hand. For the first time, the neighborhood felt quiet, peaceful, free from Karen's shadow. Max nudged his leg, tail wagging, as if to say, "We did it," and David couldn't help but smile. This wasn't just a win for him, it was a win for every neighbor who had suffered under Karen's reign. And that was the final twist in this unbelievable HOA story. If you love the drama, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment sharing your thoughts. It really helps this channel grow.